Hello, and welcome back. All right, it's time to continue our adventure with Stanley, which, as usual, has begun with setting some seemingly arbitrary settings. And to me, like, this is a game about relationships. What's our relationship with the narrator? What's our relationship with ourselves, the world we live in? But also, like, this interface, this individual, the settings individual. We have a very simple relationship. They give me tasks, I fulfill them. But they seem to be having some sort of philosophical crisis here. What time is it? Does anyone really truly know? Of course they don't. Nobody knows anything. You and I don't even know each other. We're like strangers. Okay, I was just talking about our relationship. I don't feel like we're strangers. I feel like we have a very simple but functional relationship. It's a little upsetting, actually, that you call me a stranger like that. Sure, I would adjust all of the game settings to your exact specifications, but who hasn't? It's just what I do, like a day job. And now the job is over. There's no more information for me to gather. I've collected all the data on you that I can. And I still don't really know you. Well, have you tried getting to know me, settings person? And you don't know me. I mean, there are some things I know. And neither of us know what time it is. I guess some settings are just unsettable. But if I'm being totally honest, the clock doesn't do anything in the game anyways. You won't have me here when the game starts next time, but that's okay. Video games were meant to be played alone. This just seems like coping. This just seems like coping because we've run the natural course of our relationship. There really isn't much more to do. We've set all the settings. And now they're just coping with that breakup. You like being alone, don't you? No. I mean, yes. I like solitude. I don't like loneliness. That's maybe the only information I really learned about you. Well, it's time for me to leave. There's still one more setting that we need to adjust, but it may take a little time before I'm ready for that. It's not really in my job description, but that's okay. Perhaps you'll see me again if you can find me. Talk soon. I think the relationship I have with the settings person just got a little less healthy. Like, there's clearly like some implicit stuff going on that they think about me or feel about us. Like the whole, it's totally okay. I'm totally fine with it. But secretly, I feel like maybe they're not. Okay. Anyways, let's start the real game here, and probably the subject of relationships I think is also worth revisiting between Stanley and the narrator. This is a very special kind of relationship. Okay, between me and this creature, and this creature and I. Okay. And now there are some aspects of our relationship that are transactional. The cats provide me emotional comfort and companionship, and I provide them with a bottomless supply of food, water, and pets. And so in that sense, I think the transaction is not exactly equal, but that is something I'm totally okay with. I'm happy to go and grind away for many hours at work to support their livelihood, and I don't expect that they put in a similar amount of work, really. All right, so let's actually begin our run here in earnest, and let's see what kind of relationship developments we have.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
With this guy. Okay, we've actually been on quite a number of runs now with the narrator. And it seems like our relationship does change a little bit just depending on our behavior. But I am starting to see that the narrator is a pretty consistent sort of character in this, and we do see some pretty consistent attributes of him that shine through in our relationship. And the question that's on my mind is this a functional relationship? Like, what kind of relationship is it, first of all? Is it a transactional relationship? We've explored a little bit of that. What happens when he tells me what to do and I follow that? And what does he get out of the dynamic and what do I get? He gets a kind of satisfaction with seeing his story unfold, and I get a pacification of making my own choices by him allowing me to be free. That's a kind of transactional view of this. But when we start to try to push or flex the boundaries of that, and we play with ideas like parent, child, like authority figure type roles, we start to see like, yeah, the relationship does not hold up under scrutiny. And so I think it's like a really worthwhile exercise, actually, to think about the kinds of relationships in your life and evaluate like how you behave in them. And if you see dysfunction in them, it's probably because there are probably aspects of the relationship that you're like over or underperforming in based on your bias about what that kind of relationship is. Like if I'm in a romantic relationship with someone, but the primary like way I interact with them is that if we're just like roommates, it's going to be a very loveless relationship. But a lot of romantic relationships turn into this. It turns into a cohabitation type relationship where most of the interactions are about like stabilizing the ground rules of the environment and solving household problems and that sort of thing. And like, yeah, the quality of the romance will degrade because like we've replaced those romantic interactions with like primarily cohabitation interactions. So, okay, like it's just on my mind. I have no idea what direction this is going to go in. But like as we play through the game and we test out like different types of relationships with the narrator, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. So let's go forward here.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley
What
decided
indeed?
to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
And maybe it's worth checking out some of the new content actually, because yeah, I actually don't have any like ideas in my mind at this exact moment of like deviations I could make. Maybe I'll come up with some, but I'm just gonna.
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
It's a good question. Perhaps it means new territory to explore in our relationship. Okay.
Hello, and thank you for playing The Stanley Parable
Hey.
Ultra Deluxe.
Hey, who is this?
You may know The Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers.
Where's the other guy?
After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Revealing.
Of the game for consoles and home computers.
Perhaps I have an unhealthy attachment to the narrator because I'm like,
Stanley Parable
I kind of hate this guy, but hey, where'd you do with him?
broadens and expands the world of The Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over.
Well, I don't hate him, but I enjoy the friction elements
Step
of our
inside
relationship.
and see what thrilling new adventures await in The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Did you take away my toxic relationship?
Delightful.
Oh,
I'm
there it
very
is.
excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Welcome back. Okay, so point number one. Why do I depend on this man and our antagonistic relationship? I get the sensation that things would be less fun without him here. But at the same time, most of our interactions are like dysfunctional. So like, what does that tell you?
So far, it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm
got
sure
toxic
it's just
relationship.
the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure.
Well, this is actually interesting. We're both on the same grounds.
Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere? Oh, here we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
He's like me. The narrator is usually the one telling us what to do, but
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley.
okay, interesting. I'm getting the vibe of like Stanley and the narrator go to couples therapy, and normally the narrator is like the sort of dominant person in the relationship who sets a lot of the ground rules and coordinates a lot of the things. But what we're doing here is like a therapeutic experiment of like, what if you both do something new? And the narrator's like, okay, yeah, I'm open to that. I'll try that. But secretly is like, yeah, but I actually fucking hate not being in control. Please give me back control.
All right. All right, let's see. It's the jump circle?
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe. It's so clear. What? You can jump? Oh, but in the couples therapy dynamic, something that might occur. Let's say that we came to this point because maybe I recommended that the constant power dynamic of the narrator being in control and Stanley resisting that creates a lot of the friction. And so what if you are both on the same like equal footing where neither of you really are in control of what's happening, of the experience? And like, can the narrator relate to Stanley? Is the narrator okay with the idea that like Stanley, we get a little freedom of choice? And how would Stanley feel being able to like do new things like jump, things that I could never do when I was like sort of forced into the rigid structure that the narrator typically defines our relationship by? I think Stanley would get a kick out of this. I'm getting a kick out of this. And I think the narrator would hate it. Would think it's so stupid. What a useless addition. Oh, what? I can only jump when I'm in the circle? Okay, well, that was fun.
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right?
Okay, look, don't shit on this experience just yet, narrator. Look, maybe you're just having a bit of a crisis because I'm doing lots of new things that I never get to do because of you.
Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And oh wait, there's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. I'm ready for whatever it is.
You're actually so not, though. I have seen this dynamic play out so many times where, like, the more controlling partner sort of plays along to placate the experiment of, like, changing up the archetype, the structure of the relationship. But at every point where like something new happens, like we try a new experience, we go to a different place, like we change up the roles or the balance in the relationship, like there really isn't a lot of open-mindedness. Like it is immediately negative. The narrator is doing something called negative filtering, where every experience is sort of filtered through a negative lens, even positive ones, where it's like there isn't even room or space to explore the idea that like going somewhere new and being able to try new things like jumping could lead to like, I don't know, some kind of new adventure. No, it's filtered always as like a negative thing, something that is a threat to the status quo in the relationship. And can't we just please go back to it wasn't the office great? I know we had our differences, Stanley, but we always made it through together. Like, I'm sure we're going to hear something like this.
That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fanbase rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Uh-huh. You never asked my opinion about the new content. Yeah, there is comfort in the status quo, okay? But this is a new dimension of our relationship, narrator, one where neither of us are aware of what comes next. And like that's fertile ground to reset our boundaries, reset our expectations for each other. That is a healthy endeavor to go on. And the more that you resist that, not only do I develop my own negative perception about what was, like I don't see this as a comfortable thing to return to necessarily. Maybe I like the idea of new content actually, even if it is a bit dull. I want to see where it flourishes. But it also limits your ability to redefine the relationship. What things were you dissatisfied with in our previous dynamic? Like if you put so much emphasis on, let's go back to the way things were, at least it was comfortable. It didn't always work, but at least it worked sometimes. You're stifling your own ability to change. Well, this is not the original office. There it is. Ah, the memories.
Psst. Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something.
Okay. It's going to take me right back to the original, isn't it?
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
Oh, man. I have mixed feelings about this idea because I think it's like really important to savor your positive memories, but not at the expense of being unwilling to explore new ones, like especially in a relationship dynamic. Because obviously there is a comfort in staying the same. You don't have to do anything new. You don't have to try anything new. But at the same time, like there may be lots of limitations to how happy you can be with things being the same. And if you've ever been in the kind of relationship where you've wanted change and your partner was resistant to it, you may find similar kinds of ideas. Remember how things were. Let's just go back to that.
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Yes, all of the laurels, the good times. That's the thing. It's okay to like have positive associations with the past, but you can tell that it was only so positive because there is such a negative interpretation of anything new, which I think is like less healthy. I think you have the capacity to do both. You can appreciate the past without resisting new things. That's just $1. Go outside. Unachievable achievement. Creator's surprisingly down to earth. Okay. Oh, that was a good memory, actually. It was my first run.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "We're so many games that aspire to be more than games and not less than any form of art. Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
Man, it's really not that bad. We didn't even get to try many new things. In fact, there was like a whole new area to explore that you led me down a vent away from. Because yeah, like that's the sad part of this is like the more that he like adds grandeur to the past internally, I'm like, but why are you hiding or covering up any potential of the future? Like it's having the opposite effect on me, that when you elevate the specialness of what came before, that my curiosity about the potential specialness of what I might be missing.
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone, to spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
Well, you can also have positive filtering where we're clearly sort of filtering out all of the downsides of the old experience, which is that we often did not get along. And sometimes the endings resulted in my literal death. So now I'm wondering, like, what is the actual end game of this route? Like, are we just here to remember how great things were? Like, what is there left to say about Stanley Parable if all of the best possible things have been said? If in our relationship we've had our best dates, our best romantic moments, our best vacations, our most deep conversations, those early moments of discovery before the two of us really knew each other, and it seemed like there was an infinite amount of the other person to learn and to appreciate. Once I know everything, why would I continue to ask questions? What's the incentive to explore if the best of everything is behind me? Yeah, it's great to recognize that I've had amazing moments with you. But where else is there to go?
A simpler time, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back, to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here?
New content.
Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here.
Yes.
These reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Yes. Let us look objectively at the reality of our lives, narrator. That it wasn't actually all perfect. Was it?
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! Funny? I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
Okay. A little dose of reality is not doing the narrator well here.
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness.
I don't think I can,
Quite
actually.
shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record.
And so, like, this is...
Like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
Man, the all or nothingness of his thinking as well. Like, this is the part of the couples session where, like... the couples session... where, yeah, the narrator talks infatuatingly about the past and the way things were, but then we open up the conversation to, like, what are some of the things that weren't working about that relationship? Like, Stanley, I want to hear from you now. Was everything as glossy and pristine and magical as the narrator is saying? And he might say something like, look, sometimes I didn't find... the fact that you chose everything for us to be all that great. Yes, we may have always had a great vacation, but sometimes I would like to choose where to go. And the narrator would say, well, but Stanley, I let you choose one time. I let you choose. I let you choose one time, and we had an awful vacation. And so, of course, I make all of those big decisions for us. You liked it. You appreciated when we went to all of those places, too. It's like, oh, but you're missing the point, narrator. The point is not whether or not we had a great time together based on your choices. It's the fact that I never got to choose. And yeah, the one time I got to choose because you let me, it didn't go so well because I've never been given the choice to experiment and develop that as a skill set. But that becomes the evidence and the justification. Then no. Okay, you don't make those kinds of choices. I decide where we go to dinner. You're just not a very good picker. You're not good at picking those things. Let me do it. But because they're so used to, like, suffocating Stanley, or maybe this is you in this situation, your, like, attempts to make your own decisions and try to, like, flex the boundaries of the relationship and give it some direction, they're so used to you being, like, submissive to that if you, like, at the point in the couple session where I finally get this person to say, like, look, I really want, narrator, you to listen to what Stanley has to say. Stanley, you may have never gotten to voice some of these concerns, but here's your opportunity. And Stanley actually says, yeah, you know what? I actually don't like some of the choices you make for us. Sometimes I'd really like to make some of my own. The narrator's so unused to hearing that kind of stuff. So often one person in the relationship is. that they like can't. Okay, I must be a total failure then. This whole relationship must just be garbage. And if you hate it so much, like, how come you never spoke up? Not seeing that the reason they never spoke up is because they were not allowed to, based on the rules of the relationship. And so it creates this like really strange dynamic where maybe in the narrator's eyes, you have all these great experiences, these hallowed walls of achievements and accomplishments and great storylines about how you used to live. But in the other person's mind, it looks a lot more like this, devoid of any of their own emotion and direction.
What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only
And what you'll
reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's
I can't even. Couldn't even pause it if I wanted to. What you'll often hear in that situation is like, yeah, you know, sometimes I feel like you just talk over me all the time, and I never get to say my own opinion. Oh, so you think I talk over you? Narrator part of the relationship. You think I always talk over you? Fine. I won't say anything then. How about that? How about I'll never say anything and you talk? And it's like, okay, this is the part of the couple session where I'm like, I'm having a little bit of fun demonstrating this because it starts to get tense. And I want it to, because like some people come into that dynamic, the couple's dynamic, expecting moderation or mediation to their problems. But that's not really the case. Like, actually, I'm there to surface those problems and then like facilitate them sorting it out, you know? And so like I am provoking some of those dynamics to surface, like what we might see here, these communication breakdowns. They're very common, so that we can expose them and actually work from them, because it's like you can't go back after this. Like, once the Stanley type person voices their dissatisfaction with their controlling partner, it's hard to sort of put that back in the box. But there is like a necessary point of change to come from this. It can't just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to shut up and never talk then if I was the controlling person. And fine, I'll just withdraw into myself because clearly I'm too controlling. Like, that's not really the lesson to learn. The lesson to learn is like, it takes more listening from the other person, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all of their decisions have been bad. Like, usually the person who feels suffocated wants collaboration. They don't. This is the narrator's misunderstanding, or this type of person, that Stanley wants to be in full control and not them. And it's like, no. Usually they want some sort of equality or equity.
And it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have.
But it is very common to see these, like, once you surface the problems, we come up with these very extreme solutions. Fine, I'll stop talking forever. Oh, okay, you think I decide everything? Fine. Why don't you pick the next everything? Like, we just go opposite because of the frustration, but like, ooh, yeah, it's really not what we're looking for in the long run.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past it. It's what the players have been asking for, and I'm very proud to have delivered. No more listening to me rambling on and on and on. No. The Stanley Parable is a game for the people. And if the people want silence, then by goodness, that's what they're going to get. Well, don't sit around waiting for me to shut up. Go ahead and make me shut up. Here, we'll pretend that I've just begun an interminable monologue, and it goes something like this. The story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore, by becoming it is.
But then, yeah, you'll see them start to reveal your internal view of what that person thinks of you. Like, oh, you think I'm just like, an incessant, boring asshole. Like, that's the point they're defending that Stanley's not making, right? Like in the couple's dynamic. The couple, the person who is like more relatable to Stanley, who feels a little suffocated, doesn't necessarily have this like extreme version of their partner in mind where they're just like everything they say is nonsense and boring. All they're usually asking for is like a little less intensity, a little more balance, but the narrator will jump to the extreme defense as if the claim is being made that like they are the worst person ever. This is like going through a nasty divorce.
So on and so forth, until inevitably, we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once. So, now you see, blah, 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet. No, until 245. But the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say the story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore by becoming it is. So on and so forth, until inevitably, we all until the end of time, at which time everything all... Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound such ruminations. Not that, of course, you need a description of it, but if I had to describe it, I'd... Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Oh, I can't wait to see what Cookie 9 will say about this, and whether they'll edit the rating of their Steam review, or at least change some of the wording, perhaps.
So at this point in the session, where we've surfaced the problem, Stanley never gets to have a voice, essentially, and literally he doesn't in this example. We finally open the space for Stanley to give some feedback, and it's not even really like all that negative. Let's say it's just like, hey, sometimes I feel like you're controlling and I don't get to make a lot of my own choices, and you talk over me. That's usually like more grounded to what we'll hear parallel to this. The narrator type person gets very defensive, starts to apply extreme solutions. Fine, I'll shut up forever. How about that? Or you make all the choices now. Or starts to act out, right? Now just keeps talking and talking and talking. And you know what? Anytime I'm talking, why don't you just tell me? You just tell me to shut up and I'll listen, okay? And it's just like they're totally not getting the point because they're doing it also then. I would pause them. I would say, okay, narrator, stop for a moment. What do you think Stanley is feeling right now? What do you think he's feeling? Well, I don't know. If he's saying that he never gets a chance to talk, why doesn't he just say it? Why am I supposed to be the one who said? Okay, again, I just want you to tell me what he's feeling, because I have the sensation that like that's not a question we're often asking ourselves, which is like, what is your partner feeling when you make the big choice, when you decide what's for dinner or where to go on vacation or where the kids are going to go to school or whatever like kinds of things? What do you think making that choice causes for Stanley? Because that's going to reveal the assumptions that someone like the narrator has, which might be, well, I assume he's fine with it because he's not saying anything. And then I would say, okay, Stanley, is that right? Are you feeling that? Are you feeling fine with this? No, I'm not feeling that. Okay. What are you actually feeling? I'm feeling like I just want to shut down. I don't want to participate anymore because I know that this just goes nowhere. So you're feeling defeated. Usually would sort of summarize that. Yeah, I'm feeling defeated. Okay, narrator. What do you think about that? Stanley feels defeated. This is a person that you're spending your life with. And as you make an important choice for the both of you, they're saying they feel defeated. What does that mean to you? And you'll either get one or two things. Early on, you might get, well, I think that's stupid. Okay, you shouldn't feel defeated. If you have something to say, just speak up. We might be there at this point. But eventually, this dialogue is meant to facilitate, like, do you want that? Do you want your partner to feel defeated when you try to make decisions for the both of your benefit? No, I don't want that. Of course I don't want that. What do you want them to feel? I want them to feel like they're a part of us. I want them to feel loved by me, and I want them to appreciate that I'm doing all this work to make these decisions, because ultimately I'm doing it for us. Okay. Stanley, when you hear your partner say that, what would you need to hear from them? What changes would you need to see so that that feeling becomes possible? Like, you're trying to get to the point where the values between people more clearly overlap, because right now they don't, right? The narrator, his values are on having quality experiences, having quality commentary, having like very high bar of experience. Whereas Stanley, in this situation, the player, may be less focused on quality and more focused on choice and novelty and variety and freedom and these sorts of things. And that's like the inherent struggle between the two of us, right? Where like we might enjoy being able to jump in a circle with no real purpose behind it. Whereas like the values of the narrator are like, okay, but this was useless and stupid and didn't lead to any sort of like tasty narrative conclusion. And so we're trying to expose those value gaps and find a way to harmonize them. And usually you get there by like trying to assess that. Like, does person one actually understand what the other person feels when they do this? Do you understand what Stanley feels when he's sitting in your memory hall and you're talking about how great everything is, and he's kind of feeling like, yeah, it actually wasn't this great? Because if you don't have that awareness, like how can you ever move forward in the relationship? And some of the relationships never make it past this. They never pass that test where one person is able to actually start to empathize and understand what the other person is feeling. Or when the Stanley person tells them, they don't listen or they dismiss it. And that's where the relationship falls apart. Is a lot of the issues show up in communication, but it comes down to like not really being able to or willing to listen to the other person.
To be honest, I don't even know if one can change their review in the first place. I guess I should become better educated on exactly how Steam works. Perhaps that would have been the smart thing to check on before I went about this whole exercise of making the skip button. Although I have to imagine that after seeing this exciting new technology... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unendurable by any means, but it's, well, there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself about. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? But at any rate, I do suggest that we not press the button again. I think the skip button has been aptly demonstrated, and we can say goodbye to it and just... Wait. How do we get out of here? Where did the door go? Wasn't there a door that led into this room? I do feel quite certain that there was one here before. How else would we have gotten into the room in the first place? I don't think one can enter a room without a door of some sort or a window or something.
Bro.
Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer, and my God, there's no way out of the room.
One person will just totally dissociate in the relationship and like is literally, this is the perfect analogy for a relationship falling apart.
The door is gone. It's completely gone. I've looked at it from...
Like, I just can't listen to the negativity of this anymore. It's just constant complaining.
There's no door. There's just you and the button, and if you keep pressing it, I have no idea what will happen.
You're not listening. You're not taking any inventory for what's going on. You're not
else. I don't know how to
even trying to understand me or why I keep pushing this fucking button.
Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time. Just sitting here. Not a single person to speak with.
And then every time I try to speak up, you just think that I'm punishing you, and that's why this never fucking works. It's just going nowhere. Why can't we just get on the same page and you just fucking listen to me for once? For once in your fucking life.
Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time, I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret. There is only the turning wheel of missed opportunities.
And the longer this kind of thing goes on, the less and less passion I have even to fight.
Months.
I don't even feel like arguing. It doesn't even feel like it's worth expressing myself anymore because there's no listening.
What I can only describe as the collapse.
There's no, like, we may as well just be talking over each other every single time that we talk. We're having completely different conversations in the same room.
In that instant, I could.
And there's no meaning behind it. There's no conclusion to it. We never end up on the same page about anything. And I just feel like I just want to tune you out every time that we talk. It just goes nowhere. Nowhere at all. And, like, I just don't see the point in continuing this anymore.
It was far less. You see.
Hello? Narrator?
But they didn't understand the game.
Oh my God.
To be funny, it was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us.
And then we get to these points in the relationship where, yeah, we realize we've become so highly dependent on the dynamic being about fighting that, like I was saying in the beginning, like, there just is no more a relationship at that point. This isn't a romantic connection. It's not a friendship. It's not even like a roommate type situation. And I think that this is like one of the sad conclusions to when a relationship breaks down is, as much as the person who is like Stanley tries to fight for getting their voice out, and as that doesn't work, and the narrator continues to be defensive and just keep doing this type of thing, they may be screaming and crying out for this person to just shut the fuck up, stop, just stop fucking talking. But then when you actually get that, it's kind of not really what you want in the end, is it? I didn't speak up and ask for more space in the relationship because I wanted to be lonely. I didn't ask for my voice to be more considered because I don't want to hear your voice. I didn't want this. But sometimes it is what we end up asking for because we think that this, being alone, being separated, ending things, is better than actually working through the problem. And I think a lot of relationships, like I said, don't live through this process. They need rupture and repair. And that's the pursuit of the therapy, is the rupturing part. But some people just never make it to the repair because they learn the wrong lessons. The narrator learns, fine, I will just stop talking And as Stanley, we learn to drive people away. We don't learn how to ask for balance in our relationship and reset boundaries. And the other person doesn't learn how to accommodate them, be patient, and reflect on maybe some of the ways that they were suffocating the other person. They just drive each other apart.
The end is never the end, 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 is never the end.
And then there's just no emotion left. There's not even emotion to fight.
End is never the end, 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 is never.
Every time we do this, something just dies a little bit more. Things just fall apart. And you'll see this in the relationship too. Not only will the strengths of their communication fall away, any of the initial things that made us compatible with one another, the things that like we might have fallen in love over, have completely vanished, but we'll stop even maintaining the simple things. Even just those little functional things. The stuff that we did for one another. The stuff that we survived together. All those challenges and great moments, the ones in our memory halls, they even stop having that profound impact of positive thought because, I mean, do they mean anything when the relationship has just become this? This truly is the inevitable consequence of a relationship that doesn't change when it is dysfunctional. This is brilliant. I'm loving this depiction. It is exactly what I have seen. And also experienced, unfortunately. So what's going to happen next? You know, every time we play this game, there is usually a point where we reach a natural conclusion and things reset. And then we sort of move on. And we never really get to address the problems that we started with. We just sort of go back around and find a new problem to deal with the narrator. And I wonder if that'll be different this time. I wonder if there actually is something that might change after this. Because there really isn't a way back from this at this point, emotionally. It may take something new. Something different than what we know. Well, we've killed the relationship. We've killed the narrator. We've gotten him to stop talking. And this is also what we've created. You know, I sort of always start positioning the narrator as like the problem in the relationship, but Stanley could also be the problem. You know, the person who is more persecuted in the dynamic can also become the one who destroys it when they completely shut the other person out. I think really the blame lies with both of us. And we find ourselves in the emotional desert. Here's the thing, guys. In any kind of relationship, you need a way of giving each other feedback. If you can't do that, it won't survive. If you can't tell the other person what's not working and what is working as well, you'll never teach that person how to listen, and you'll never make any progress. And if you want the other person to take responsibility for what they're doing, you have to take responsibility for telling them. Don't just expect them to read your mind. Or don't expect them to speak up when you've created the type of relationship where speaking up comes with some kind of consequence. Some of your assumptions about what the other person thinks will kill that relationship. Well, not exactly a happy outcome. I mean, we are back here in the closet office that we always begin in. And yeah, like I said, I think it's gonna be hard not to integrate what we just saw into my experience of the narrator and our relationship. I actually, maybe I fear now that because of the nature of this game, the structure of it, is it possible to like have a narrative conclusion where like something changes? I mean, that's always what I'm looking for. and if there isn't one, I try to invent one through editing like I've done on some of the other series. We're certainly good at rupturing the relationship, and that certainly has given us a solid platform for exploring dysfunctional patterns in behavior and couples dynamics and all kinds of stuff. But will we ever actually get to visit the repair? Remains to be seen. Well, thanks for joining me on another adventure into, well, it's hard to be a human. Be good to the people in your life. And if things aren't working in some relationship that you have right now, try listening a little more and asking instead of assuming what they think and feel about you and how things are going. Just try asking and then listening a little closer. You may find that it actually makes quite a difference. Until next time, see you soon.